Alright guys, now after playing the game for a month and clearing everything on Inferno, and now also entering my cleaving arc in RTA, that's right, videos following soon about that as well. Cleave is the way to go, but it is time for us to look into our shells value tier list. I will go over which shells you want to use on which characters, in which scenarios certain shells excel or can get countered even, in RTA specifically. And I've also considered in this ranking the matrix drops that these shells have, something most people don't consider yet, but in the end game that's something you want to consider as well when you're looking at the shells that you're going to build. And the rankings are going to be based on versatility of the shell, PvE and PvP performance, and the competition / alternative these shells have for the same character, right? So for that I have timestamps down below for each of these shells where I go in depth over what makes them good, how to counter them, how to use them, and so forth. At first I was thinking to only go over the mythic shells, because at the end of the day you will only use mythic shells, but for everyone who's still progressing I will also go over all of these early game shells, because they're gonna be a very important part for you to be able to progress smoothly. So for the beginning of the game, what you want to do, so as your DPS, for your DPS you want to go for Agent Lizard or Budoponda at the beginning of the game, because these shells actually deal quite a lot of damage compared to your units, because your units at the beginning don't deal much damage at all, right? So having already 2400 damage is already a lot of more damage that you get from just the shell alone. It sounds like little in the end game, of course, but at the early game your units barely deal damage, and having the shell that deals 2400 on top of their attack is just very nice to have and helps you a lot. Then as for the healer shells in the early games, I think the reason you can use, if we go take a look here, the reason what it does for you guys, before the owner takes action, increases the healing by 30% if the heal target has less than 65% percentage HP, applies 1 turn of heal over time. So that is nice. And then you have, for example, the Electro Squid on the other hand, which is an epic shell, and it does basically the same thing, just with healing increased by 25% and also 1 turn of heal over time. And I think the Electro Squid is just not that worth it. I built it and I didn't use it at all. I think it's not that good, because the epic shells, the gold shells already cost a bit to level up. So I rather have a reason on your healer, or on your healer what you can also do is go for a tempo shell. So a tempo shell, for example, would be Black Flag. Black Flag has been heavily overused from many people and misused from many people. Now Black Flag is nice and all, but if you use a speed buffer in your team, let's say a Mio, a Tsukiyomi, or a Lily, for the Lily enjoyers, you're not gonna use a Black Flag on anyone anyways, because they already get the speed buff, and that 60% turn meter increase is not justifiable. You much rather then go for your healers or your support units overall, your debuffers, a star. A star is super good, one of the best early game shells in the game, and the star is here at the beginning of B tier. I was considering it to put in A tier, but at the end game the bonus stats you get from the star are just very low, because it is just a unique shell, right? But star is super strong. And then another utility shell you could use is going to be this one, the Unburdened Science. Now it gives you a big turn meter push, but I would say the star is just way better than this, so I would always go for star on your debuffers, because a 40% turn meter push is nice, but having your cooldown reduced by 100%, your ult cooldown, just 1 turn reduced, right, from a debuffer, is basically a 100% push, because the other turns without their cooldowns, the support, the debuffers and the utility units are not going to do something. So this is going to be way better than this. Another thing that is good for these healers and also for these debuffers is going to be this boy right here, the Blizzard. Right, the Blizzard is basically a cheap Halloween. It has a 60% chance to reduce cooldown of one enemy for 1 turn, from 1 turn, 3 turn cooldown. It has a lower chance than the star. It has a lower cooldown than the star, but it is an epic shell and therefore has just better stats. That's why it's in the same tier as the star. And eventually you kinda really want some speed on your units, and just you want to have every bit of speed that you can get. As for the early DPS shells, we have Twilight Knight and Crossroads. I think they're both very similar in performance. I know Twilight Knight has been hyped up a lot, and sure, for single target damage it's good, but the Crossroad isn't too shabby either, to be honest. It's not too shabby either. Both work, and both can deal a good amount of damage. Then the other epic shell that I want to go over is the Shanghai Ying. It's basically a cheap knockoff of the Gigabyte. For every 3 actions by the enemies, you push 0 turn cooldown. You see, over a long term fight, this is a lot of pushing that you get from this guy right here, and is therefore on the same page as the Black Flag. Black Flag, like I said, if you have a Lily, I think Black Flag is down here, not gonna lie. So keep that in mind. Also, before I had a Lily, I used the Tsukiyomi, so I never used the Black Flag ever for most of the time. I had one build, but I barely used it. It really depends on what units you have. The speed buff is not gonna give you anything if you already have a speed buffer. You get it, right? And most of the team comps want the speed buffer. So these are kind of the epic, unique, and rare shells that I really wanted to go over. I don't want to go over every single one of them specifically, especially the ones that you're not gonna really use. For example, Diamond Heart is a cheap knockoff of our boy right here on top, but it's just way worse than Artisan. So this is why it's B tier. Also for debuffers, this one works as well for bosses quite well. I used it for quite a long time on my class. Just extends the debuff by 1 turn. Therefore you will have a 3 turn defense break, and White Gale can actually work very well on your debuffers. So let's get now into the gist of it, and that are going to be the mythic shells. Now Amber, the only use case I see for Amber, and I think it's a good use case, but it's a very niche use case, and therefore I wouldn't justify building Amber very early on at all. And that is going to be first up PvP, and second of all on Tiamat, because of her Amber interaction, that when she recovers that HP, she transforms, gets her turn, and reverse cleaves. And I think that's the only play that you have, and I just don't value that much. You can also go Tiamat, of course, on a Lighthouse if you play her bruiserish, or if you use her as a reverse cleaver anti-cleave unit, then you go on Amber with her. And outside of that, I just don't see any use cases for Amber. Now they fixed the issue where Amber didn't pop when she was CC'd, so that is nice, right? All of the CCs get removed when your unit's about to die, and they reduce their turn meter, they heal themselves, and then get increased defense, and once they get their turn, they heal again. Problem is, for anyone else then Tiamat, they will just get CC'd, or they will just get killed in that ice state again, from what I've seen so far, because Tiamat gets the turn immediately, everyone else gets pushed back. So far it's hard to justify this when there are so many other good shells out there. So the only use case I see is for Tiamat. If you have a Amber use case, let me know down in the comments below. I would be interested to hear some other use cases than that. Then next up we have Law of Silence. Also here I have a big issue here with the Law of Silence, and I've tried it on my Messiah, for example, and it has won me some games, of course. It's nice, but it's very niche. It's very niche, that's why it's in A tier. Because first up, it is a good shell for aggressive units, for a player that doesn't want to play aggressive. The main problem is, in the current RTA meta, it's also just a PvP shell. First up, it's not gonna give you anything for PvE. But first up, the thing is, for the PvP, in the current meta, Holden is the GOAT, okay? And on top of that, you have Viper, who's insanely strong, and you have Heinrich, who's also insanely strong in RTA. And all 3 of those can strip buffs AoE, and that void state, that
Law of Silence provides for your team, for your unit, that they cannot be attacked and get reduced AoE damage, can just be stripped. It can be stripped. I think if the Void State wasn't strippable, super good. But since it is strippable, and since there are so many strong strippers in the game, it's hard to justify Law of Silence in many cases. I still use it. It has some counterplay, and for PvE it's not that good. So I would only, at the end of the day, invest once you got all of your PvE shells ready into a Law of Silence, because first up you want to use higher tier shells that are going to be good for RTA, PvP and PvE. Then the Alicorn, actually the Alicorn is very low here, right? Why is it so low, Ronaldo? How dare you? How dare you? Now, what can I say? The Alicorn, I just don't know who I want to put it on. Let's just put it that way. You could use it on the Tiamat, for example, right? You couldn't use it on some tanky units to cleanse them from debuffs, which is nice, but it has a 4-turn cooldown to cleanse. And even if you run a Alicorn on, let's say, for example, if you would run on your healer a Alicorn so they can't get stunned, and do you run a Strife on your healer as well, so for example on the Linglo, let's just put it there in RTA, your Linglo gets pushed up through the Strife, and then through the Alicorn gets, for example, cleansed from the Cosio sleep, for example, right? Then she can cleanse everyone else, give everyone immunity, heal them up with the Linglo. The problem here is they're still susceptible to being just pushed back, right? And it doesn't have immunity, and I would rather have a immunity on my unit than having an Alicorn. You know, I'd rather have a immunity set on my unit in RTA. And in PvE you can kind of use it, but again it's super niche. And instead of having an Alicorn cleanse 2 debuffs every 4 turns, I can just have a Gigabyte who also kinda cleanses debuffs, thinking about it, because you just get more turns in and therefore the debuffs are gone faster, right? That's the thought process behind the Gigabyte in the back of my mind. So I wouldn't see why you wouldn't just use a Gigabyte there. Right? Gigabyte is just better. Let's go into the Gigabyte actually real quick. So Gigabyte, he's super good. One of the best shells in the game by far. Super good for RTA. You just put a Gigabyte and immunity on your healer or your disruptor. If the aggressive player hasn't killed your disruptor already within 3 turns, and they're still setting up and their DPS comes on 4, you disrupt their cleave with the Gigabyte, and you're very good to go in RTA, right? And the Gigabyte also for PvE, every 3 actions, 35% turn meter, 0% cooldown, is insane. It generates insane amounts of tempo. Now for the end game on your opener, for the end game in PvP on your opener, let's say a Lily or a Mio as your opener, I wouldn't go for a Gigabyte because at the end of the day, you're gonna want to have a speed set here on the 6th piece and combine that with Swift Rush on your opener for RTA. Other than that, Gigabyte, I have 3 Gigabytes I think leveled. I always everywhere use at least 1 Gigabyte. For example, Inferno Doki Doki, I use 2 Gigabytes. I think for Inferno Aurora, I also use 2 Gigabytes. For Inferno Nikonano, I use 2 Gigabytes. You get me. Gigabyte is just super versatile. PvE menacing, PvP menacing as well. One of the best shells in the game. By far. The amount of tempo you get from this, immaculate. Now let's get to the Dark Moon. Now the Dark Moon is quite underrated in my opinion. It is basically that you get a lot of effect accuracy, and you will get 1 turn increase on your debuffs. So if you have a class, instead of a 2-turn death down, she will give a 3-turn death down, and therefore be able to just CC your opponent for quite a long time if you go for a rush down. So for short fights on debuffers against bosses, it's super good. Now PvP, not good at all. In longer fights on a debuffer, you would much rather go for a Halloween. Let's go into the Halloween. Halloween is just an improved version of the Blizzard. And the Halloween has an 80% chance to reduce cooldown of one random skill by 1 turn. So 3 turn cooldown. It just cycles a lot, you know. You get your cooldowns a lot faster. And throughout the longer fight with the 3 turn cooldown on the Halloween, it just provides you a lot of cycling. It just provides you a lot of cycling. And in a long fight, it's gonna outlast a Dark Moon. Then the other thing for debuffers that is super good and for openers is going to be Codex of Magic. Codex of Magic, Apex tier. Now, why is Codex of Magic so good? It's not just that you get your ult twice, right? It's more than that. And that is this right here. The matrixes you get on Codex of Magic make it super, super flexible and super good. First up, you can run Swift Raid or Swift Smite on it, therefore you will be able to just have an extremely fast opener on your Codex of Magic. On top of that, you can even run a Bloodbath. You can run Swift Rush, of course, very important on your openers, because in RTA it's going to be one of your opener thingies. Then Bulwark you can also use on it. Bulwark, very nice as well. And on top of that, right, you have your ultimate twice, and you have that turn speed, increased speed for a certain amount of duration. Now it is a fast-paced shell, right? In an extended fight, it's gonna suffer a lot because it can't be reduced, and it has 8 turn cooldown. But the amount of tempo it generates for your team is generally not to be messed with, and that's the reason why the Dark Moon isn't used that much. Is because, sure, with the Dark Moon you can get a lot of tempo for your Kloss, for example. That just gets her ultimate to inflict 3 turn of defense down. With the Codex of Magic you basically have 3 turns too, because by the time your Kloss goes again, it's 1 turn left from your boss, and then she goes again, applies again these 2 turns of defense down. And on top of that, the Codex of Magic, why it's so good for the PvE as well, is if your Kloss, for example, I'm mainly talking here about the Kloss just as your example, as a premier debuffer, doesn't hit all of her debuffs, all of her 3 debuffs, in the next turn she has another chance to hit the ones that she missed in the previous one, which is very nice, and that's why it's so good. The matrixes are so good. It's PvP insanely strong as well. It has the right matrix effects, insanely good matrix effects. You can use it on debuffers, on openers. You can use it on literally DPS. You can use it everywhere for aggressive playstyle. That said, Rengoku's is very hard, and I think Rengoku's shells though are super, super solid. Then who did I not go over? Now White Fang. Now White Fang I think is good, but I don't think it's as good as the other DPS shells. That's right. Why is it not good as the other DPS shells? Now first up, for Aurora, for example, I think it's quite good if you use someone who doesn't use Revelation, because it gets just 2 hits done to the Aurora shield, and that's the main thing. You really want to get rid of the Aurora shield, and it is the earliest shell you get. This is why you're going to use it for the most of the time, because you're also going to be able to get Swift Raid or Fury Edge. So that in that aspect, White Fang is very nice in terms of the matrixes available. The damage increase is good, like the damage you get throughout the long fight is very nice as well. You get a lot of damage, you get a lot of single target DPS. It's super strong. But it's just for 1 turn and for single target bonus damage here on the double hit. Whereas, for example, let's go into the next DPS shell. Let's go into the GOAT of the DPS shell. Let's get him out of the way. Now, I don't know why it says here 12% plus 180%. I thought they were going to nerf it to 10% plus 150%. Maybe they nerfed it, didn't adjust the text. Maybe they didn't nerf it. I don't know at this point. I'll be honest. But even if they would nerf it to 150% and 10%, it's still going to be Apex tier 4 DPS. It's just so good. Why is it so good? Well, it's true damage. And that true damage is so oppressive for PvE and PvP. Like, your Rosa, your Shiada. For PvE, for example, anyone who does multi-hits, it's super broken. So for example, Rosa, 6 hits of Revelation, disgusting. Shiada, 4 hits of Revelation, disgusting. Yeli, up to 5-6 hits of Revelation, disgusting. So PvE already insane value. Even on Messiah, who only does a double hit, it's just super good for the Doki Doki fight because it's true damage and it ignores the defense, the damage reduction on the Doki Doki fight. So if your Messiah goes or if your Shiada goes while the enemies are not slapped or just got their damage reduction back, it still deals insane amounts of damage because it just ignores it, right? It just ignores it. It's just so oppressive. Revelation is kind of the GOAT. So Revelation for that PvE, insane, right? Because you deal a lot of true damage, you deal a lot of percentage damage. And for RTA, it's so broken. I think the main reason why they plan to nerf it, or I don't know if they have nerfed it already and the text isn't adjusted, is in RTA you see people running around with a DPS Freya or a DPS Selins with Revelation. You just stack a bunch of Revelations and deal a bunch of percentage damage on multi-hitters and they just go hard. They just go hard. Revelation just super strong, super oppressive, best in slot for many units. Just the best DPS shell overall. Next we have the Count. Now the Count is also a super strong one. And I also believe the Count is a tier above the White Fang for multiple reasons. First up, it increases your attack by 1,200%. 1,200. So therefore, the value you get from crit damage gets higher, and therefore you don't need as much attack. And the value you get from Kenai, these bonuses, is also higher, for example. It's hard to explain, but I think you get the gist. And it makes your unit deal more AoE damage, right? Having that 1,200 attack bonus. And on top of that, not only does it make your unit deal more AoE damage, but it's a 2-turn damage increase. For example, if you use a Lily with a White Fang on your the Ting, first turn the Ting goes, he hits with the White Fang, does damage. Nice. Then Lily goes, resets the White Fang, deals again damage with the Ting. Nice. The thing is, if you use a Count there, deals good amount of damage for 2 turns, right? 2 turns, bonus damage, plus life leash. Your Ting goes, deals more damage for 2 turns. She resets the count to 2-turn cooldown, so therefore once the count is over, the Ting will already have his count back up, and therefore he will have 4 continuous turn of attack buff, and therefore the Count will actually be able to provide so much value, because while a White Fang, for example, right, when Lily goes against Rengokutsu, for example, the fight against Rengokutsu, when Lily goes, I'm just talking here for this one example, okay? When Lily goes and dual attacks with your DPS, the White Fang is not going to provide anything, whereas when she dual attacks, the count is still up. The count still has that bonus damage for your Ting, for every dual attack. So with the synergy with the Lily, it's super strong. Now I know not everyone has Lily, but even outside of the Lily, it provides a lot of AoE damage as well. For example, like a Born. Now Born has a lot of different options than this as well, but just as an example. And also, very nice Swift Raid, Fury Edge, of course. Big fan of the Swift Raid. Then another DPS shell. I think this one I completely forgot to go over with. That is going to be the Golden Lion here, down here. Now I think Golden Lion is just not the play. You could theoretically, in long PvE fights, equip a Golden Lion on someone like a Rahu, and your Rahu will deal a lot of damage through the Golden Lion. Or just in long PvE fights on units, they will scale up a lot. But in the current situation, I just don't think it's feasible to go for a Golden Lion for these long fights in Ember Track and stuff, when you can just go for a White Fang or a Count or a Revelation that is going to be able to be strong in PvE and PvP and also in short fights instead of just the long fights. So Golden Lion is just very specific, and even if you think about every 2 times Animus uses skill 1, you could think, oh well, Yelly, maybe Yelly works super well with this. Well, yes, she does. But Revelation is just so broken that you would still go for Revelation on Yelly. That's just how it is. That's just the Revelation, suffering from Revelation here on the Golden Lion. But in long fights on tanky units that you want to deal damage, you can go for a Golden Lion on the Rahu. That's it, right? If you go for a Rahu DPS, you can still go for an Artisan and have your team more have more survivability. Sure, he deals less damage, but he has more survivability. Let's get into the Artisan. Apex tier. Now, in certain scenarios, your Artisan can actually be A tier in RTA, and that is a very specific scenario that I've used quite a bit to climb in RTA, and that is when I saw people use a Holden, who's very meta, Rahu, who's also meta but has some counters, and just a lot of Artisans, right? You see a lot of Artisans in RTA. Apply big shield. I just go in with the Veronica, say thanks for that big shield, buddy. I'll take it from you, give it my whole team. This is the counterplay. On top of that, Artisan in RTA, while still being strong, keep in mind there are a lot of strong strippers currently meta in RTA, and therefore that value can be stripped away. That said, it's still super good in RTA. And also in PvE, it is super busted. I think it's super busted. On my Lily, ever since I've theory crafted at the beginning, I used the Artisan, I still use it. It's just that good because on your speed unit, having that Artisan just lap, right? Your speed unit just goes fast and reapplies that shield over and over again. It just helps a lot. It helps a lot. So the Artisan on that note is going to be super valuable. And on top of that, you can use your Artisan. You can use triple Artisan comps to tank down hard PvE and be able to clear Inferno, Termaton with a tank down. You can do so much. Artisan helps a lot with consistency. Is super good for PvE, super good for PvP as well. Like I said, PvP he has some counters, but overall easy Apex tier even then. Next up, I want to go over the Lighthouse, and I think it's quite an underrated shell, and I think it can be even higher than S tier. Honestly, it might actually be even higher than S tier. What are you talking about, Ronaldo? What are you talking about? What are you on about, Ronaldo? Right? This is what you might be thinking. Well, the Lighthouse, first and foremost, very nice tanky substats, just what you want from it, right? Just what you want that matrices on the Lighthouse. Now, what is good about the Lighthouse? First up, only a 2-turn cooldown, and the other thing, triggers when the main body takes damage greater than 25% of max HP within a turn, healing the main body for 25% max HP, increasing the turn meter by 25%. So not only is that very valuable for PvE, actually can be very good for your PvE, while our Artisan, for example, on these tanky units can be countered by some of these strippers, or a Amber can be countered by stuns and so forth. The Lighthouse's healing can really help your units survive, and it has a 0-turn cooldown at the beginning, right? So you're not gonna get cleaved. I'm thinking, for example, Lighthouse you can use on you could even use on a Holden instead of the Artisan, or maybe you can use it on a, or you could use it on a Tiamat as well, right? I think the Lighthouse is very underrated, and I think it can be very solid because it heals, right? And turn meter push, but it's mainly the heal on bruisers, on tanky units that can help you survive, and yeah, I think it can be quite strong. And then we have, and it's another Rengokutsu shell, right? It's another Rengokutsu shell. Well, Rengokutsu is a menace. Then next up, the Jackal Guard. Now the Jackal Guard is very strong on certain units. The problem I have with the Jackal Guard though is he has a lot of competition. He is kind of a opener shell, right? Gives speed up, gives some damage, nice damage actually, quite a good amount of damage. Turn meter push. And it has that necessary, where is it? There we go. Swift Smite to have as much speed on your opener as possible. The thing is, openers like Tsukiyomi, Lily, and Mio, right? Let's put them for example. They already have a speed buff. Right? So that it's kind of hard. Also, he's competing with the opener Codex of Magic as an opener. On top of that, the speed buff can be stripped away again, right? Like I said, 3-turn speed buff can be stripped away. Veronica takes it, gives it her entire team. Holton takes it, Viper takes it, you get me. But the damage here is very nice, it's a lot of damage. And I could see this, for example, work on someone like a Born, right? Because first up, the speed openers often get banned anyways. And the Born doesn't really care about it not being able to crit like a White Fang does. And therefore he really enjoys that 4200 bonus damage and being able to cycle faster. The problem is on the Born, he could also very much enjoy a Codex of Magic, right? It's just, you know, that's the thing here that I have my issue with on the Jackal Guard. So while I think the Jackal Guard can be a good shell, I think in PvE can be quite good, because you can have your Lily a lot faster through the Swift Smite than through Artisan. That said, the Artisan value is just higher on the Lily than the Jackal Guard, or a Gigabyte also doesn't have the Swift Smite but is also more valuable if you have a Lily, for example. It's hard, you know, it's hard, but overall it's still a good shell. But considering what it is competing for, with which units, it's going to be very niche. It's going to be very niche. Then the healer shells, we have the Supernova. Most people, me included, have a Supernova build, simply because it just has that immense healing power that it provides your Ling Lo. It is basically necessary to have a Supernova on your Ling Lo to be able to do Aurora, Inferno. Just provides, it's just for the PvE aspect, Apex in Aurora and some of the healing that it provides is super good. But it also has another competitor, another Rengokutsu shell, of course, the Fortissimo. Now Fortissimo, our Italian drummer, most people have a Supernova build and don't build the Fortissimo because you don't really need to build a second healer shell, right? The thing about the Fortissimo that I'm thinking right now is, theoretically speaking, he is good for PvE, just like the Supernova is. Extremely good for PvE, but he can also be used in PvP. He can be actually quite good in PvP as well, the Fortissimo, because he just makes sure that your Ling Lo heals full life. Next turn she heals full life again. That said, your units first need to survive the first turn, right? But it is something you can consider here on the Fortissimo. Can be very solid on that aspect and PvE aspect as well. So therefore this Fortissimo also S tier shell. But yeah, that's overall the shell tier list. I think these guys are self-explanatory. I think the Lighthouse has potential actually to go up here, but it also has potential to go down here in PvP, depending on how the meta goes, right? If it's gonna be a bruiser meta, Lighthouse is gonna go very strong, whereas it's gonna be a cleave meta, doesn't really help you to heal when you're dead already, right? So Lighthouse is one to watch out. This is my shell tier list for you guys. Make sure to like and subscribe for increased summoning luck. That's just a word in the streets, not my word. I'm Ronnie. I wish you a blessed day, and I'm out. Peace!